Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search builds great teams by connecting lawyers in Texas with career opportunities at small and boutique law firms. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a few of the positions we are currently searching for in Tarrant County or Fort Worth, looking for a corporate attorney, a family law attorney, and a partner level attorney in virtually any civil practice area if you've got $250K per year in portable billables. In Dallas, a real estate and private securities lawyer. Also corporate and civil litigation opportunities in Dallas available as well. In Houston, estate planning, litigation, insurance defense, and in Austin, family law and estate planning. So those are just a few of the many, many opportunities that we are currently aware of and searching for right now. So if those might interest you or someone you know, please have them or you get in touch with me, Daniel at varsitysearch.com. Would love to visit about that. All right, today we are in Austin, where our guest is Charlie Roadman. Charlie is a partner at Roadman Espiritu, where he has spent nearly 20 years as a criminal defense attorney, focusing on DWI and misdemeanor cases. He and his firm have secured over 1,200 dismissals for their clients, and with an intense focus on client and customer service, they are consistently given 5-star reviews on every major platform. Charlie has authored a book titled The Defendant's Guide to Defense: How to Help Your Lawyer Get the Best Result. All right, with that, let's hop into our conversation with Charlie Roadman on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Charlie Roadman joins us right now. Charlie, thanks so much for taking time to come on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get a chance to visit with you. And I guess first, let's start with just having you share a little bit with us about your practice and your firm. And we'll start there. There's a lot of things I want to get into, but let's start there.
Okay. Well, I've been a criminal defense attorney in Austin for about 18 to 20 years, depending on when you start counting, and so I was a court appointed attorney, for about 10 years. In Travis County, they sort of have a hybrid system, or they did, where it was, I was a retained attorney and a court appointed attorney. So, but after about 10 years, I stopped doing that and focused a little bit more, on DWIs and misdemeanors, although probably about 20% of my practice are felonies. But I would say not the third degree felonies and down, so not this pretty hardcore stuff.
Gotcha. What within that practice area, is there anything that's been going on lately? And we'll address COVID separately here in a moment. But is there anything going on within the areas that you're practicing in within that kind of, third degree down criminal defense stuff that is maybe happening within at the legislature? Obviously, we're still in session right now, so I know that can always be could be some things thrown in. Is there anything like that you're watching or that you've noticed lately that's been impacting your practice, the types of clients that you're seeing come through?
What's really been impacting us is there's a new district attorney in Travis County and a new county attorney, and they're very progressive, and they ran on some progressive ideas, and I'm kind of surprised that they're actually getting them implemented. I've been used to people running on, progressive ideas that just weren't able to do it. But so, this of course won't apply around Texas, but in Travis County, it's just interesting to see politics and how it does move the dial sometimes. They're more pretrial diversion programs. They've opened them up. And so there's just a lot more opportunities to get a good resolution on a case if your client's willing to do some work.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I don't know how much this plays into it, but when it comes to kind of broadly defining it as criminal justice reform. It does seem like that is an area where there are elements of both the political left and political right that have some commonality. Like you can find a fairly good chunk of conservative criminal justice reformers out there in a lot of different ways, and same thing on the left. So it does seem to have some legs that are bipartisan, and so we're seeing, I think, more of that in some other areas around the state and for sure around the country within criminal justice. So that's interesting, and that you're seeing it implemented there as well. And you referenced this, but I'm sure depending on where people are around the state, may not be familiar with the setup of because every county kind of has a little bit different setup. You talked about the district attorney and then the county attorney. Talk about that in Travis County in terms of how they're set up and who prosecutes what versus when, is that common or rare, or kind of how do you contrast that maybe against other counties around you or around the state?
Right. So in Travis County, the county attorney handles misdemeanors and the district attorney handles felonies. Okay. So I think that has to do with the size of the population in Travis County. They just need to separate that. I've done some work in surrounding counties and over the years, and you'll find that the district attorney handles both things, the misdemeanors and the felonies. If their populations doesn't really support two separate administrative government agencies. So, yeah, that's how it works here. County attorney misdemeanors, district attorney felonies.
Gotcha. Well, and also, as I mentioned before, I was curious about what you've seen, particularly recently, as it relates to how COVID is impacting your practice and the courts there, your clients. We're recording here May 13th, 2021, for people maybe listening later. What is sort of the latest that you're seeing as it relates to that?
Well, we had about, 13 to 14 criminal courtrooms, half misdemeanors, half felonies, and they're down to one on the bottom floor. And so each court has a morning or afternoon once a week to resolve cases that really need the clients to be there. So there's, a lot of pleas that need fingerprints and verified identities of people. So it's unbelievable, the difference, right? I mean, that we went from having, probably 600 or 700 people in the courthouse Monday through Friday to 30, so right. It's been a big difference. So, yeah. And the most thing that's impacted us is that, as defense attorneys, we really need to keep track of our clients, communicate with them, and keep in touch with them, because we no longer have this sort of artificial court dates that they have to be there that sort of forces them to come to court and to interact with us. So that's done some defense attorneys in who aren't really as good at email and texting and stuff like that. They've just sort of thrown up their hands, because before they just had to go to the court date and the client would be there and they could do this interaction. And
that's interesting.
And that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that is an interesting wrinkle, and hadn't thought about that. So, you mentioned it's down to one courtroom. As things have been, hopefully, starting to open back up, at least in other areas around the state, and as more and more people get vaccinated, has there been any word on kind of what the goal is in terms of reopening those courtrooms that are right now not opened?
Yeah, I mean, we hear it's always 3 months out, so starting back from probably September of last year, the goal was December, then the goal was March, and now the goal, so, I mean, I think it's, the judges here are progressive and they're paying attention to the news and the science. And so, they're not in a rush to put people in danger. So, but they're talking about it and they're trying to figure it out. I mean, the biggest problem really is jury trials, just as I'm sure all your guests have said. So it's hard to imagine getting people, enough people for a jury panel. And so I think they've got plans of doing the voir dire, not in the courtroom, somewhere else where it's a huge like hangar like situation. And so they're trying. I mean, because they know there's definitely people that need their trials.
Sure,
but it's not going to be this month or next month.
Right. Did you see any change in, and I'm kind of rewinding back now to the first of part of 2020 or March of 2020, but have you noticed or seen in the types of cases or numbers of cases that have come into your office in the last 12 to 14 months, a spike or a change, or just, like kind of what this past year's done with people and done to environments that have created different types of cases? What have you seen with that? I'm curious.
Yeah. They've been arresting people pretty steadily, I mean, it's, they still sell alcohol, and that just means people are, going to get arrested. So, the biggest difference I think has been, it's pretty easy for people to get a court appointed attorney now before, like, 10 years ago, you had to qualify to get a court appointed attorney. You had to basically swear and prove that you didn't make any money, and now I think they've just, if someone says, I want one, they say, sure, and so that's been different.
Okay. Well, looking back now, when you first got started in practice, what's something that stands out to you that you learned that has really helped you in your career, made a big impact on you, and something that you would want to pass along to those of us listening?
Yeah, what I've really got a lot of value out is doing the things that our clients have to do myself, so I can explain them better. And so in criminal defense, there's classes, so I would take the classes. There's, getting new administrative things, and I would do them myself so that I could be able to explain them to people better. So that was something that it took me a few years to realize was really valuable for clients. Because normally we're just the judge or prosecutor says, have them take this class, and then you just say, take that class. Mm-hmm. And, you barely know anything about it. But now, I'm able to explain what the class is like, where you go, the advice for things. And in fact, one of them, or two classes, there's a 12-hour DWIE class and a 15-hour drug class. I got certified to teach them. And so I actually, I don't do it anymore, but I used to teach those classes. And so, as you can imagine, I can reduce the anxiety of the clients, because like no one wants to take these classes, but I'm able to sort of tell them a little bit about it. And my joke for that 12-hour DWI class is it's like a combination of 8th grade health and a reality TV show, and then they laugh and then they go, because that is exactly what it's like. And then they're more likely to do it, for one, if I've set it up like that. Right. And I have, I write a lot of FAQs and make videos and things like that. So if you've done the thing, you can really explain it well enough that it benefits me, because they're not as scared of it, and so they don't come up with reasons not to do it. Sure. And then, so then I get the case done faster, or then a better result, and everybody's better off. Yeah.
And one of the things I want to highlight about that, and obviously, we have a group of lawyers that listen that span the entire practice area gamut, and so, but I think that obviously for criminal defense lawyers listening, specifically what you just said is super important. For those that aren't, though, I think the idea of really trying to put yourself in the client's shoes, having empathy for them, trying to understand as best you can what it is they're going through or about to go through. That could look very differently in a civil litigation situation, family law situation, whatever. But the lesson holds true. It's just going to look different, right? Perhaps in a different context. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think that, there's different types of obstacles. So you've got digital obstacles, right? So for people that aren't necessarily good at computers, then you've got the physically going places obstacles, and then you have psychological obstacles. And so, just thinking about the whole gamut of like what would stop a person from doing something you need done, and thinking about it like that, and then trying to give them the information that avoids that obstacle. So even money, right? Like, so if someone said, take the 12-hour class. Okay. Well, some people aren't going to take it because they're going to wrongly assume it's $500. Like, their brain's just going to go, you know what? It probably costs a lot. I can't, I'm not, but when you say here's a 12-hour class and it costs $80, and then all of a sudden they're going, okay, well, I can afford that. And, so there's just trying to get them to not talk themselves out of doing something, and
right.
That's been a strategy that we've used.
Sure. Is there anything that you came to learn more recently, maybe in the last few years, that you wish someone had told you earlier, or that you could save us all some time? And, yeah.
I mean, I guess I learned it probably 5 or 6 years ago, but I didn't communicate with the clients at every opportunity before. So when I started the practice, you would sort of only communicate when there was something substantive that happened. And I've since learned that, just with a template email that's just lightly edited, so it's, customized a tiny bit, that if you're sending them fairly constantly, anytime anything happens, and generally I'll attach a link to an FAQ that sort of explains in general more about the process. But I found that, when the clients can tell you're working, as before, if they don't hear from you from 2 months, they just assume you haven't thought one thing about them, when in fact you've done 4 or 5 different things. They didn't need to know, so you didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So I've, my team, when we have the meetings, I'm like, just let's find out more ways to communicate with them, or, any little thing.
Right.
Let's let them know. And the people just, they clearly like it. I mean, they do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because I feel like on a couple of occasions on this show, we have talked about the importance of communicating with clients. And we've often sort of half joked about the fact that, the number one reason why people make complaints to the bar is because they're not being communicated with from their lawyer. But that's sort of, I think, going from like the never communicating and not communicating appropriately and enough to like kind of a normal route. I think where you're going is the next step, which is what many might think is over communicating, but it's doing it for that purpose of giving them comfort and ease and confidence in the fact that you are working on their behalf, you're advocating for them, even if it might not be something they technically have to know. Or that, you wouldn't, it's not anything that would, if you didn't say it or didn't communicate it, it would get you in trouble with the bar or something like that. We're going beyond that. We're going well beyond bottom line standards, right? Yeah. And
I can actually even take it one step farther, that when my clients hire us, I start them on this 20 email life coach sequence, right? So basically once a week, it sends out an email that says, hey, Daniel, this isn't related to your case, but I wanted to talk about this aspect, and here's this podcast I really like, and here's this book. And in fact, actually there's 4 or 5 audiobooks that I offer to buy them. I just say, hey, I love this book by Russell Brand. Just reply yes, please, and we'll send you a link to this audiobook. And so it's interesting, just the other day, I got an email from a client who's been a client for a while, and she's just like, I want to make sure that everything's okay, because I stopped getting your emails, and basically she had just gone through the whole cycle. She's gone through the cycle, and she was comforted by these emails that I'm there, it's pretty easy to. I mean, I'll probably bump it up to 30 emails now.
Right.
So.
Right.
anyway, it's
That's funny.
The communication part and at the bottom of the emails, I have a little link that says, hey, how's everything been going? Do you have a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share an accomplishment with me? And you click on that link and they just can fill it out and send me something, so yeah, it's I'm happy with that. With the way that's going.
Yeah, good for you. That's exciting. That's really neat. I love hearing about innovative, creative ways to communicate. So that's cool. I wonder if you might share some things. Obviously, as you know, our audience are mostly younger lawyers in those first few years of practice, and I wonder what you've seen in the past, or maybe folks that you've either worked with or worked across the table from, but things that you might suggest them, one or two things that really impress you when you see them in a young lawyer that they might internalize and try to make part of their practice.
I think making sure that they're comfortable with the digital tools that are available. It seems like every year there's a new tool that makes our practice a little better. From scheduling tools to team tools to sharing. So then there's digital marketing. And some of your listeners might not be in that field, but
right.
I'm a small business owner, so if you're doing a small business, there's just lots of classes out there. I just took a 5-month class during COVID. That was one of the things I did, and trying to keep up with the times, really, and you can listen to podcasts like yours, or there's entrepreneur podcasts, and there's startup podcasts, and I've found that while I'm running on a treadmill listening to some other person talk about their project, that it invariably I have an idea, by the time that is done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the owners of law firms that are generally older, are not studying the digital space as much. And so if you're a young attorney and you can show them anything, a lot of the older attorneys are amazed that you can text from a computer or something, just sure. Things and showing them ways to improve systems would be what I suggest.
Yeah. How about in actual trial practice in the courtroom? What, if anything, and obviously some of those digital tools come into play in the courtroom now as well, as we've seen, but anything that you've seen or that would advise as young lawyers sort of getting their feet wet first few times, taking on a witness or delivering an opening to a jury or anything like that?
Well, I tell you, VR and 360 photos are going to be commonplace pretty soon. I actually had a programmer create the system where I could turn, when someone's wearing a headset, I could change the photo of what they were looking at, and got a couple of cases dismissed by showing the prosecutors these photos that just are different. Like if you show them a 2-dimensional picture, the prosecutor's brain or the jury's brain sees it one way, but when you put them right in the middle of the scene and they're turning around and they can see the dimensions and they can feel it, it has an impact. And so I do think that's coming pretty quick here, for just juries, but also just negotiating, and I just hand a prosecutor a headset and say, look at this scene. And they can't wait, for one. They'll tell me, bring more like that. Give me, they want to be entertained too, right? Otherwise it's just a boring day for them. Right. Looking at offense reports and 2D pictures. So, that's coming, the juries there'll be 12 headsets or 6 headsets, and the judge will be wearing the headset. That's kind of the problem, or the obstacle to that. This is that, there's going to be, if you add the prosecutors and defendant and judge, and, there's going to need to be 18 to 20 people.
Cost to the number of machines that you need, number of headsets.
Right. And making them all sync up, but but it's coming. You know, it's so that's been interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You, I think, started to dive into this a few minutes ago, but I want to give you a chance to kind of fully explore what you were saying. When we're talking about as you're looking to hire people or interview people, and you're talking about, you know, kind of learning about their personal style. Let's talk about interviewing a little bit. And I should back up. First off, like when you are maybe interviewing for a position and you see resumes come across, you're looking at resumes, what's something that you tend to look for in a resume that makes you feel like this is someone that's really, you know, could be a good fit for us, or has put, you know, real effort into this, and clearly could be, you know, a possible candidate that we'd want to hire? You know,
I do go straight down to the bottom of other interests.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, my practice, we've got 4 or 5 people, and so it's, you know, consider a boutique, you know, firm. So I'm looking for team compatibility.
Yep.
More than how hard they work. I'm just going to assume that they are reasonable, you know, people that work. But
right.
Yeah, so I'm looking for something that can be relate to them, because there's a lot of camaraderie. I imagine in most firms, but definitely in criminal defense, we're kind of like, it's us against the government, you know. So we got to all sort of be able to to hang out and laugh and stuff. So, you know, and I wouldn't say that I'm particularly good at evaluating resumes. I mean, I've definitely listened to podcasts about, you know, how to find the right person, and I don't do any of it. You know, I mean, it's just, but I don't hire people that often. I mean, it's, you know, every 2 or 3 years somebody, but.
Well, it's definitely more art. Definitely more art than science. So
yeah. I mean, I do know that you know, and I have let some people go that weren't working, and that's always terrible, and that's the worst part. But I do know that if it's not a fit, it's not good for them either. So yeah, and you know, it's funny because we've had a couple of different folks on in the past. The issue of interests and hobbies on a resume is a favorite debate among like career development people, recruiters, resume preparers, and all of that. And you'll get different answers, sometimes very strongly opinionated, depending on who you're talking to, in either camp of, I don't care about that stuff. I don't want to know about it. I just want to know you're going to work and show me all of your stuff, you know. And then the other side is kind of what you said, which is, you know, no, hey, we're going to be a close team here, and we kind of need to know how everyone fits together, and can we hang out for, you know, all this time together, and we can't hide away people, that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I've always encouraged people to include, you know, interests and hobbies on their resume, and with a caveat of, you know, I think it's generally more helpful if they can put something on there that's a little more specific and unique so like, just by way of example, because I'm a runner, so I always use this one, but you know, like a lot of people will just put running on their interests, and I don't think that hurts you necessarily, but I also don't think it really stands out that much. And so, but if you, like, you know, can put have completed, you know, 3 half marathons, or, you know, you can kind of put something that's a little bit more specific and something that's unique to you, you know, then I think it's more effective and it's more helpful, and also shows a little bit more about your underlying personality and that kind of thing that's more helpful to the employer that's looking at it. So, but I recognize maybe people listening that have never put interests on there, or vice versa, whatever. I just want to acknowledge the debate. One of my office managers that was with me for 4 or 5 years, when he was applying, there's 5 other people that interviewed, and my current office manager was helping me gauge them. And one of them said he had done some music production, you know, putting on concerts and stuff. And I'm a musician and fan and stuff. And so I immediately ranked him number 1. And I asked her, I said, what did you think of him? And she was like, I had ranked him last. You know, it's just, it just depends on who's evaluating, right? I mean, and you can't control that, I guess.
I will say.
Okay.
Okay.
Out to here, this was a chick, the office manager that had ranked him last. I hired her after she wrote an email to me, and at the bottom of it quoted Lawrence of Arabia, which is one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
And I immediately knew she had just looked on, probably back then it was MySpace or something, and saw my favorite movie, and she just put a quote. And you're, even though it was so blatant what she did, you're still like, that's great. She knew how to get me. And so, and she was with me for 3 or 4 years and went on to law school. Anyway, yeah. So you can figure something out about who you're going to see. And
no, I think there is absolutely a lot to what level of preparation people do in advance of writing cover letters, resumes, and interviews in terms of getting to know the people they're going to be talking with. And so whether it's including something in a cover letter or resume that's specifically, pulling on something like that, or just knowing how to raise it in an interview or something like, you can, I think, go overboard and come across more stalkerish, creepy type. But I think most people are pretty good about that and don't, and are more likely to not do enough prep than do too much when it comes to stuff like that. So I usually just encourage them to kind of look into bios, look into stuff like that, because you're just looking for ways to connect with people, and that's a lot of what this is about, is can you connect with people, and particularly a practice like yours where you're meeting with individual clients in very trying circumstances, and you're trying to provide them comfort and empathy and all of that. Like you've talked earlier about the level of communication that you're wanting to have, and it's different maybe if you're in a corporate civil transactional practice that's not as emotional, that's not as charged. You're working with 12 people on behalf of a company instead of one. Those are some different types of circumstances and whatever. But I still think, when you're in an interview room, you're talking with one person, 2 people, 3 people, like making that connection, finding ways to do it. Advanced prep work helps. There's no doubt about it. Before we wrap up, I did want to ask you something about your book that you have out. Again, I recognize not everyone's practicing criminal law listening to this, but The Defendant's Guide to Defense, How to Help Your Lawyer Get the Best Result. Everybody has clients, so I think it's relevant. And I want to ask you about this. One of the main topics that you talk about there and in the other places that you speak, you talk about how to get your client to do things that you need them to do, and kind of explaining the why behind it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that crystallized with listening to Gretchen Rubin, who's an author.
Yes, I've read her stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know the 4 tendencies? That's one of her things. She talks about there's 4 types of people, and it's fairly pop psychology type thing, but the 4 types are immediately jumped out at me as I recognize all 4 of those. And there's the upholder, and that's the person that follows internal and external rules. When the red light is red in the middle of the night and there's no one for miles around, they still sit there. They wait for the light to go green. And then you have obligers, and they follow external rules, but not necessarily internal. So they're the ones that are determined to go on a diet, but they just can't last long on the diet because of the internal rules. And then this is the third category, are questioners, and those are people that won't do something unless they know why. And then the fourth category, just to be complete, is the rebels, and there's not much you can do with them. They're going to do whatever they want to do, whatever. But you've got in criminal defense, there's a lot of questioners, and particularly with some of the just general cynicism that people are suspicious of but as soon as I can explain to them why they need to do this, they go, okay. And so once I started identifying that should be one of the primary goals, that opens up all the different types of things that we do, from making the FAQs and the videos and writing the book so
if you're having trouble communicating with clients, maybe think through helping them understand the why behind it, huh?
Yeah, it's like magic. I mean, it's And so the software that I developed, this actionplannow.com, when you assign a task, everything has a how and a why. And you just when they get it, and the how is important, of course, how to do the thing. Yeah. But the why is just the thing that makes them do it.
Yeah. I'm also laughing thinking about just the other night was my son is 6, and he was I was asking him to do something, and he kept asking me why. And as a dad, that's not a good question, and I don't want to tell him why. So I was just thinking about, I'm not telling you why. You just say yes, sir. And, and then once we're done here, I'm going to tell you why after you've complied. That's the way I usually treat it. But it's probably not a bad problem.
Yeah, the problem when it's a kid is the why. They don't really want to know why. They just want to delay whatever.
Yes. So, and they want to know how they can argue with you as to a piece that they can argue with it. And so, Well, Charlie, thanks so much for taking time. We've got some rapid fire questions to wrap up. If you're ready, these one word or one phrase answers, and we'll go through these.
Sure.
All right. So name one trait or characteristic that you most like to see in an associate.
Problem solving. I mean, not giving up.
Yeah. What habit has been key to your success?
I would say finding ways to be creative in explaining things.
Yeah, good. Your favorite app or productivity tool?
Mind maps, which, there's a bunch of different types. I use ithoughts.com.
Awesome.
But mind mapping is incredible.
Cool. We'll link to that for sure. Your favorite pen. What do you like to write with?
I've heard you've asked this question before, and it's so funny. My answer is MacBook Air. I don't know how. I don't know. Have I held a pen? And I don't know in a long time. But
hey, that works.
Yeah. Okay.
Your favorite social distancing activity?
My teenage daughter and I like to drive around Austin late at night, listening music, trading songs. She plays a song, I play a song.
That's awesome.
So it's our bonding and socially distanced.
That's cool. Last, your favorite legal movie?
Pretty new. Have any of your guests said the trial of the Chicago 7 yet?
One person mentioned it, and I think it was within a couple or three that they mentioned. And Keith Jasma is who I'm thinking of. And so, yes, it was mentioned. But yeah, tell us about that.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's Aaron Sorkin, so he's never written a sentence that wasn't interesting. But
right.
but it's from I'm sure he's taking some transcripts, and there's cross-examination in there that it's just beautiful. And we're so used to writers sort of not following any rules of evidence, and so it's weird to an attorney. I say it's almost like they're singing off key. It's hard to focus, but boy, you just get sunk right down into the beautiful cross-examination stuff in the Chicago 7 movie, and it just makes you smile.
Yeah, it is well done, and it's a relatively new one. It was out this past year it's a Netflix original, and was up for a number of Oscars. I think it walked away empty-handed or close to it, unfortunately. But it's very good. It should still be on Netflix. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's definitely worth watching. So thanks for that recommendation. And thanks again so much for taking time to come on the show. We appreciate it and wish you and your firm all the best.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Daniel.
All right. My thanks again to Charlie Roadman for joining us on the show today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing two things for me? Would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And would you rate and review the podcast in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen? If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, if I could help you in any way, or if you're interested in any of the opportunities that we mentioned at the top of the show, or just want to talk about career opportunities that we could help you with, email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com, and we can set up a time to visit. Would love to do it. All right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.